The pit lane lights are green and the 1998 Formula One season is go here in Melbourne, Australia, as Damon Hill and Ralf Schumacher, the new teammates in the Jordan Mugen team, get onto the track at Melbourne. This, of course, is Damon's first official racing type lap in the Jordan, having driven in the Arrows team last year. Ralf Schumacher is his new teammate, Michael Schumacher's brother, and Alan Jones. It's looking good for a wonderful season of Formula One racing in a situation where at last all the speculation that we've had over the winter and testing about who's going to be going quickly is going to be resolved.
That's exactly right, Murray, and welcome back to Australia.
That's
certainly right. I mean, all the speculation, all the rumours that we've heard now, when the green light, when the red light stops, you know what else stops as well, and we're going to now see who's been sandbagging and who's been on the pace.
But this is very much the man to watch, and the red car there is not a Ferrari, let me hasten to say. It is the Williams in its new colour scheme, and at the wheel is Heinz Harald Frentzen coming into the pit lane. And here is the Benetton of new driver Alexander Wurz, who created such a sensation last year. Alexander is a countryman of Gerhard Berger and an Austrian, and Wurz finished in third position in the British Grand Prix last year, and he was very much a new boy, a test driver. He only drove in 3 Grand Prix, but he scored points, and as a result of that he got a place in the Benetton team when Gerhard Berger retired. So now he's new to Melbourne, never driven here before, and he's got first of all to get used to the track. How long do you reckon that'll take him?
I think it'll probably take 10 laps, a dozen laps. I'm very impressed with this guy. I think he was thrown in a little bit at the deep end last year and he handled it absolutely fantastically. He's obviously got a very cool head on his shoulders, and I expect great things from this guy.
And now here's something interesting. As you watch Villeneuve, Pedro Diniz, the Brazilian driver in the very, very spectacular liveried black and white Arrows car, has gone fastest in the first sector in terms of absolute speed as opposed to time. But here's Villeneuve. Is he going to move up into the lead? No, he's not. He's in second position.
Well, it actually makes that hill lap that I said earlier on pretty good, I think, because I don't think Villeneuve's hanging around. I think he's having a fair old go. And I think, well, as you can see, then he's putting wheels off the road. And I think Damon put a pretty good lap together as quickly as he did.
Yeah, indeed he did. 1:37.8, and Villeneuve, let's get it right, was third fastest so far. Just 0.2 of a second slower than Heinz Harald Frentzen. And as I said, there's a real inter-team battle this year between world champion Villeneuve, who's now fastest in that. That's one of the Arrows. Now, it looks like...
it's in a very bad spot. He's right on line there.
Just checking where it's Pedro Diniz.
He's had a lock-up, I think, by the look of it. The rear tyres, if you can see the black marks at the back of the car, he's had a transmission lock-up or something.
I tell you this, Alan, that's got a carbon fibre gearbox, that car, and they've had a lot of problems in the development of that carbon fibre gearbox. Maybe, I don't know, obviously, but maybe that's the problem.
Well, they'll red flag this session. They have to, because that they can't shift it. It's in a dangerous position. It's right on line. So I'll be very, very surprised indeed if there's not a red flag at any second.
Oh, and Michael Schumacher really giving it some. Too much, in fact.
Now, Murray, he could be in trouble for not slowing down. He obviously knows that there is a red flag. Now, whether that was done a little bit earlier than what we've seen, maybe because it was so spectacular that we've decided to let you have a little bit of a look at that. But if that wasn't the case, he could be in trouble. But certainly that is Michael Schumacher trying very hard indeed very soon.
And with practice stopped, we'll take a break here at Albert Park. 8 minutes after the red flag went out, Pedro Diniz's car, the Arrows, has been recovered, and practice, I emphasise, as opposed to qualifying, has restarted on a track which is now considerably damper, to put it mildly, than it was, because there's been a very heavy shower of rain whilst they were in the pit lane. And it's still Michael Schumacher fastest after 4 laps in the Ferrari, a time of 1 minute 37.5. which is about 8 seconds off the pole position time last year. Narrower cars, groove tyres, and we're looking now at the Stewart car with its new Ford V10 engine.
Yeah, this is Jan Magnusson, the young Swedish driver, somebody that I thought would do a little bit better than what he did last year. I spoke to him yesterday, and he said he likes this car a lot better than last year. It suits him a lot better. Actually, I correct myself, he's Danish, not Swedish. I don't know what I'm talking about. He said this car is a lot better. It suits him a lot better. He's got a much better affinity with it. And he seemed very, very confident, because there's no doubt in my mind that, oops, a little bit wide there, no doubt in my mind that he has an enormous amount of talent, and I don't think he just exploited it well enough last year.
Here is Jacques Villeneuve. Now, he is fastest now. He's pulled the bung out, and he's moved up ahead of Michael Schumacher with a new lap time of 1:37.1. Now, he is therefore just about 7.8 seconds off his pole position time last year. I'm expecting the pole position time this year to be about 4 seconds slower than last year.
Because there's mind games going on as well, Murray. Even though the track really isn't at its best, it's still green. They realise there's only about 10 minutes to go, and any racing driver worth his salt wants to be able to climb out of that car at the end of any session and be the quickest.
Turn 12, coming up round the powerhouse to turn 13. That's about a 75-mile-an-hour corner at the apex. He accelerates up towards the Stewart stand, fourth gear, 135 miles an hour. Turn 14, now down into the second gear, 45 miles an hour.
Whoops.
Turn 15, you're absolutely right, Alan. This is the last corner on the track, and Villeneuve's time before was 1:37.1, and this is a considerably faster lap, like 1.6 seconds faster. Now we're getting somewhere, 1:35.5.
And that would have cost him a few, 0.2, 0.3 of a second at least. He just went a little bit too deep into that left-hander before the right-hander leading into the pit straight. That definitely would have cost him 2 or 3 tenths.
And for what it's worth, he's 2 seconds faster than Michael Schumacher, but that's not worth very much, because Schumacher could undoubtedly go faster. But I remember that last year Villeneuve was absolutely sensational in pole position by being about 1.7 seconds faster than the second fastest. And there is Eddie Irvine in the white flashed Ferrari. They're all coming out now, because we've got just over 9 minutes of this first 60-minute practice session at Melbourne, with Villeneuve fastest, Michael Schumacher second quickest, Damon Hill down to third, Heinz Harald Frentzen in the Williams down to fourth, Olivier Panis in the Prost up into fifth position, and Mika Hakkinen, who's been out unseen by us in the McLaren, into sixth position.
Oops.
As Michael Schumacher overcooks it well and truly here.
Well, Murray, it has started to sprinkle with rain, and even if it was snowing, it's unusual to see Michael Schumacher make a mistake like that. But there you go, anyone can get caught out.
Benetton leads Ferrari. Here it is. And the Benetton is that of Alexander Wurz. So there's the long sweeper round out of turn 12. And Eddie Irvine closes up on the Austrian. Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari dodges out from behind Wurz's slipstream. And Eddie Irvine, of course, was the man who was extremely contentious at the beginning of the Australian Grand Prix last year by taking out Johnny Herbert. And Michael Schumacher has spun off the circuit as Irvine goes through to complete a lap, and is now 9th fastest, followed by Wurz. The storm clouds are gathering again overhead. The flags are still straining at the flagpoles, which will help keep those rain clouds moving, we sincerely hope. Now there's Alexander Wurz's first Sexta time, ticking away on the right-hand side of your screen, compared with the static time of Jacques Villeneuve. That's the one he's got to beat. There's Frentzen going off into the gravel trap, the blue-painted gravel trap at turn 6. Keeps well away from the wall.
Murray, I think this is fantastic. I really do. I mean,
I think we're going to see some very exciting racing.
Well, hey,
Alan,
let's hope so. That's what
there's
we're
going
paying
to be a
the money
lot of that this year.
You know, I think a lot of this too is because there we go.
Damon
Hill.
Damon spinning it.
You know, Murray, a lot of it's they've been sitting in the pits and they've been waiting, and now all of a sudden they've realised that there's 5 minutes to go. Whoops, Villeneuve's done very quick. Let's all get out there and have a go. And this is the consequence of it.
Yeah, Damon literally burns rubber at turn 4. You're watching Michael Schumacher, second fastest, 9/10 of a second slower than Jacques Villeneuve here at Albert Park, Melbourne, practicing for the first Grand Prix of 1998, the Australian Grand Prix.
He doesn't look happy with that car. He just doesn't look as one with it. It looks very twitchy. It's not the normal smooth sort of a Schumacher at all.
And we haven't seen anything of the Ferrari, Alan, up to now, really, because they've done the lion's share of their testing at their Mugello track in Italy. We didn't see them at Barcelona in direct contention with the Williams and McLaren cars. As you see, Michael Schumacher is 0.8 of a second slower than Jacques Villeneuve. They've both done 9 laps, and there's 4 minutes to go. And there is Giancarlo Fisichella. That's a new car and helmet combination that we're seeing. He stopped between turns 6 and 7 in the very pretty, I think, Benetton. It's the first real money, no object Formula One car, and that's what happened to Fisichella, that Nick Wurz has designed, the man who was the Simtech team designer. And in my opinion, Alan, he's made a very good job of it. It's a nice looking motor car, very simple.
Here we go.
And you're watching David Coulthard in the much fancied McLaren Mercedes. It has a brand new Mercedes V10 engine, smaller and lower, designed to the requirements to some extent of their new technical director Adrian Newey, who so successfully masterminded the Williams cars that won the championship under the control of Patrick Head. He's moved allegedly for a salary of some $4 million a year to McLaren, and they're seeing the fruits of his experience already.
Murray, have a look at the rear wing on that McLaren. I doubt very much indeed whether you could have put more angle on or have it any bigger. I mean, they're just running an enormous amount of...
Yes.
Interesting to look at his time, though. He's very close to Villeneuve, and there's still quite a way to go. So if he makes up that, there's still at least a quarter of the circuit to go, so he's in with a chance.
And here's the David Coulthard eye view of the Melbourne track from the cockpit of his McLaren Mercedes. As he's coming up towards the end of the lap, you can see less than 15 seconds now. He's got to complete it. Loses a bit of traction there. Turns into the last corner, and he's lost time there. But he was in 4th position. He's moved up a couple of places since I spoke to you last, and he goes fastest.
Well, Murray, I tell you what, that was very good, because he lost at least 2 or 3 seconds on that left-hander before the right-hander leading onto the pit straight. So if he's gone through before the flag came out, he's got another go at it.
Yeah, and Mika Hakkinen is flying now. It looks as though McLaren, who may have been sandbagging up to now, are starting to show their hand to their rivals. David Coulthard has gone fastest, and Mika Hakkinen is on what will be his last lap, and he was fastest in Sector 1. He was faster than he had been before in Sector 2, and was the fastest in terms of speed as opposed to time in Sector 2. And Mika Hakkinen goes quickest. So now the 2 McLaren Mercedes at the end of the session are fastest. Faster than the Williams, faster than the Ferraris, faster than the Jordans and the Prosts and all the rest of them. Mika Hakkinen is quickest, 1:34.726, and that is an incredible 0.7 of a second faster than his teammate David Coulthard, and it is nearly a full second faster than Jacques Villeneuve.
It's also very good psychological games as well, because to sit into the pits for 7/10 or whatever of the session, and then come out towards the end and just end up 1st and 2nd, I tell you what, that'll have the other teams really scratching their heads.
Yeah, they've done 7 and 8 laps respectively, Hakkinen and Coulthard. Damon Hill-Frentzen has done 11 laps. Ricardo Rosset did 15 laps. So Villeneuve's pole position time last year just under 1 minute 30, and already Hakkinen is just 4.7 seconds off last year's pole position time, and this is in their exploratory session. They've got a lot of work to do, setting up the cars, improving them, making them go even quicker. I'm prepared to eat humble pie and say that my 4-second gap estimate is going to be dramatically reduced.
Yeah, I think I might revise mine now a bit too, Murray. I think I'll go for low 33s now.
Which would be just about 3 seconds off the pace at the first race of the year. It is quite incredible the way the governing body, year after year, does things to try to make the cars slower, and year after year the designers and technicians defeat them.
So the McLaren's fastest at the first practice session. Now, one man with more than a passing interest happens in season 98 is a former co-commentator of mine. He's a former 3-time world champion and now a team owner with all the heartache that goes with that. It's welcome Jackie Stewart and Alan Jones. And were you happy with your first practice session?
We were happy because last night we worked all night. The mechanics never got any sleep at all in order to get Jan Magnussen's car prepared for today. And we're just lucky to be on the track. The car had never turned a wheel until it left here for the first practice session. The car ran well, quite competitive under the circumstances. Rubens Barrichello's car ran pretty well. We had a little bit of trouble with both cars, but nothing serious. The second session is, I think, going to be much more interesting for us.
Alan, the new technology, the groove tyres, and of course the thinner chassis. What do you think?
Well, I like it. I don't mind rule changes. I think that's what it's all about. It's down to the engineers to grab those changes and adapt to them, and that's what Formula One's all about. I personally think it's going to make the racing a little bit more interesting. I think it's going to hopefully make better overtaking, and certainly from what we've seen in the first session, the cars are moving around a lot more than what they did last year, which looks good if nothing else.
And you?
I think we're going to be ending up by Saturday night qualifying by not being a lot different in time than we were last year.
Well, Jackie, it's lovely to see you looking sartorially splendid once again. Thank you, Alan. A lot more racing coming up right after the break.
In your average Formula One race, each car will make at least one scheduled pit stop, and possibly as many as 3. Each of these is critical to the outcome of the event. Although the cars are only stationary for a few seconds, the slightest hitch can be the difference between winning and losing. The teams are so highly drilled they can pump in almost 90 litres of fuel, change all 4 wheels and tyres, and wipe their driver's brow in less time than it takes the average motorist to find their wallet.
Welcome back to Albert Park on this Grand Prix weekend. Looking forward to some tremendous racing. We're at the Benetton garage right now, and they have a newcomer to Formula One, a very exciting young driver, one that Alan Jones says has a tremendous future in. He's also the tallest driver in Formula One right now, Alexander Wurz. They are not designing these cars for people like you, are they?
No, not really, because it costs a lot of time and actually it costs also a lot of money for constructing it for me. But the way I did my job last year as a test driver for Benetton, they thought it's worth doing a car for me, and I'm really thankful for the team for Benetton, because I have enough space at the knees, at my elbows, because in the past, even in the beginning of my career, I always ended up after driving with blue knees, blue elbows, sometimes open, so it was very uncomfortable, and this is my most comfortable car actually I ever driven. But it's still not like in an armchair. So.
Okay, well, you know, you replaced Gerhard Berger, who was also a very tall driver. I guess you swapped a few notes with him on how to adapt to a car like this.
Oh, yes, he's got the same problem, but there is still 2 centimeters I'm taller than Gerhard, and these 2 centimeters makes a huge difference. So we're talking here just from millimeter differences for more area on the knees or elbows, which is really tight in such a car.
Well, you won Le Mans in 1996. I mean, that was a nice kick-start to get into Formula One. Is there a tremendous transition between the two types of racing?
It's different. It's completely different. But in Le Mans, when we had the victory with my teammates, it showed that I'm, as a young driver, first time in Le Mans, everybody said, it's a too big risk with a young driver, it's not good, and he will shunt the car. But I showed that I'm driving with my head, and I showed that my team told me, go this lap time, I did this lap time, I was looking very well for fuel consumption, for tire wear, and these 2 points is also very important for Formula One. If you are not good on fuel consumption and not good for looking and saving your tires, then it's very difficult in racing.
Were you happy with the opening practice session?
Oh yes, I mean it's for me the first time on the circuit. So I have to get the rhythm and get more familiar with the circuit. The weather conditions was also not so easy with drizzling, raining, drying. But I'm quite happy for the rest of the weekend, and the things look not too bad. But we prepare now for racing because we think you need to finish the race. That's the most important thing.
Well, Alexander, go out and have a lot of fun, and I hope you have a lot of success.
Okay, thank you.
Alexander Wurz. Okay, this second practice session is going to mean a hell of a lot to a lot of drivers. Let's join Murray and Alan right now.
So out onto the track for this second 60-minute practice session. The times, of course, do not count for the qualifying. That's done tomorrow afternoon. And it's Mika Hakkinen in the Arrows, and he desperately needs some experience on the track and in the car, because he only did 3 laps in the first 60-minute session this morning. He had a problem, which hopefully has been put right. Very pretty car, Alan, designed by John Barnard, the ex-Ferrari and McLaren designer.
Very pretty car, Murray, but of course what he doesn't need is exactly what we're seeing at the moment, and that's the circuit to be dry on one half and damp and wet on the other half, because it really is going to make it extremely difficult to arrive at any sort of a setup when these conditions prevail like this.
Now, I told you that Salo there in the Arrows had problems, and Pedro Diniz actually stopped out on the circuit, and Darrell Eastlake's been finding out what caused that to happen.
Murray, well, it was a major incident, because this car's been totally pulled apart as we have a look at it now. I'll show you some of the mechanics working on it. Everything really out of the car. All the fluids have been replaced. There's a whole army of people trying to get Diniz back on the circuit. So much work's going on. A lot of oil's come out of this car. They've mopped it all up, tied it up the best way they can. But you can see exhaust pipes have come off. Everything's come down. So it's been a major loss.
Pedro Diniz just did 3 laps this morning. Mika Hakkinen in the other Arrows has done 5 laps over the 2 sessions so far. And at the end of that first session, the 2 McLaren Mercedes cars with their Bridgestone tyres had truly dominated, with Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard fastest, ahead of world champion Jacques Villeneuve in the Williams, Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, Jean Alesi in the Sauber, and Damon Hill in the Jordan. But now you're watching Heinz Harald Frentzen, the German partner to Jacques Villeneuve in the Williams team, 8th fastest this morning, and he ideally will want to finish ahead of his teammate at the end of today's time. The first person you have to beat in a team is your own teammate, because he's the only man that's got virtually the same equipment as you have. And Heinz Harald Frentzen is under a bit of a cloud in comparison with Jacques Villeneuve, who dominated in the Williams team last year. Frentzen won just 1 race in 1997, the San Marino Grand Prix. He did finish 2nd in the World Championship, but a big points gap between him and Villeneuve. And he finished 2nd, of course, because Michael Schumacher, who had scored more points than him, was excluded from the Drivers' Championship as a result of that coming together at Jerez in Spain, the last race of the year, with Jacques Villeneuve, as a result of which Jacques Villeneuve won the World Championship. And Charles Stewart is with Jackie Stewart in the pit lane.
Thank you, Murray. Yes, Jackie, well, you've got all 3 of your cars in the garage, and all 3 have been worked on. Are things going as you planned?
Well, a lot of work. We worked all night last night to get Jan Magnussen's car finished for today. We worked all night on the spare car, and we'll probably work all night tonight on it. We're a little bit behind, but both cars for the drivers are running now, Rubens and Jan's, and they went quite well in the first session, although the track conditions were difficult to judge. But no, we're okay. We'll be fine by the time we get ourselves organised.
Now, you had a couple of little mechanical problems this morning.
We had a little hydraulic problem in Rubens' car and an electrical problem in Jan's. But we knew what it was. It didn't take long to fix.
Did you always expect that you'd still be building the 3rd car at this stage?
Well, we shouldn't be doing that. We should have had it ready in time.
Well, thank you very much, Jackie. All the best.
we've got 32 minutes of this 60-minute second practice session left. Fisichella, identifiable not only by the helmet but by the red flash on the nose of the Benetton with its Mika chrome engine. Those of you who follow the sport closely will know that Williams and Benetton both used the French Renault V10 engine in past years, and now Renault have withdrawn from Formula One after one of the most successful periods ever for an engine manufacturer, and their place has been taken by the Mecachrome concern, who previously assembled and serviced Renault racing engines. It's effectively the same engine as last year with a different badge on it. But some people are wondering whether Mecachrome will be able to keep up the development pace, very hot pace indeed, which Renault had in previous years. Time will tell. And there's news from Darrell Eastlake in the pits.
Yeah, thank you, Murray. Well, David Coulthard just warmed the car up. He started to rev the engine. The rain's starting to fall down in pit lane here again. In fact, it's getting steadily heavier, but he's elected to come out. So, rating it on David Coulthard coming out now. So the McLarens will just see what Hakkinen does too. But Coulthard now out, and the rain's starting to come down.
Well, bad luck for David Coulthard. Now, we've all been wondering over the winter how much extra time it will take for these narrower cars with less efficient aerodynamics and the groove tyres to do a lap in comparison with the 1997 cars. The general feeling was that it would be about 5 seconds. Well, this morning, for the first 1 hour practice session, that prophecy was almost exactly fulfilled. Mika Hakkinen 5 seconds, just over 5 seconds slower than Jacques Villeneuve's pole position time last year in the Williams Renault. But those times are undoubtedly going to come down as the teams get experience of Albert Park and change the settings on the cars. I think Al and I are both optimistically guessing that it'll come down to about 3 seconds with a bit of luck. More news from Darrell Eastlake. What's happening, Darrell?
Yeah, Murray, as you can see now, Denise had came out. I mean, they've worked so hard on this car to get it out for this session, and he rolled down about 50 metres down from the pit, and it just died. They've rolled him back in the pit, so a lot of work. Denise very disappointed. We tried to talk to him before. I said, what is the problem? He said, mainly it's a gearbox problem, but because it's so complex, there's a lot of work around just to get to that area.
That Arrows John Barnard car has got this innovative carbon fibre gearbox, which John Barnard actually pioneered when he was with Ferrari. He gave a lot of trouble there, and I don't see any logical reason why he shouldn't give a lot of trouble elsewhere too. As off goes Takagi in the Tyrrell Ford. Tora Tiger Takagi, Toranosuke Takagi to get it absolutely right, but since it's so complicated...
And look at the mess he's bringing. I mean, I don't know if he's back on the track yet, but he'll bring a few of those stones back on the circuit, which won't be appreciated. But here we go. We're going to replay of the spin. Oops, locks up the tyres. Look at that. Lost his steering. Locked completely. Flat spotting them. They'll be history after this run anyway. And understeers straight off with flat spotted and locked fronts.
No changes in the top 6 so far, but David Coulthard is now down to 3rd position because Jacques Villeneuve is out on the track. We've got a battle between Villeneuve and Coulthard. Jacques Villeneuve has moved up to within 0.3 of a second of Mika Hakkinen as you watch Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari. There is the order: Hakkinen, Villeneuve, Coulthard, Schumacher, John Alesi and Damon Hill. Welcome back to Albert Park for the second practice session for Sunday's Australian Grand Prix. It's still no change in the top 3. Hakkinen, Villeneuve, Coulthard as David completes another lap. And Giancarlo Fisichella in the Benetton is down in 14th position. I must say we are all a bit mystified as we look at the computer listings, because Jean Alesi in the Sauber Ferrari is shown as in 5th position. We don't have any sector times for him. He's only done 5 laps. He's in the pits and has been there for most of the time. And I have to say, notwithstanding the fact that computers are computers, that I doubt it.
Yeah, and we just see Damon Hill having yet another spin. So obviously having a bit of difficulty coming to grips with that car on this circuit. And I agree with you, Murray. I think Alesi's time is wrong, and I think that'll be corrected shortly.
But meantime, Michael Schumacher is on a quick one. He's just gone fastest of all in the first sector. We're watching Damon Hill, who is 8th fastest at the present moment. And there's a replay of the spin as the Jordan Mugen Honda goes off the track. He kept the engine running, feeds in the power gently because that grass is very slippery.
That's actually the second time that he's lost the car on the exit of the corner, and it's the same corner as well. So, you know, whether the car needs to be softened up at the rear or he's just giving it too much rally too soon, I don't know, but very strange.
I know that Schumacher is in the 3rd sector and he's about to go fastest if he maintains his pace from the 1st and 2nd sectors, because he was quickest in the 1st, quickest in the 2nd. Here he is crossing the line, and Michael Schumacher goes down amazingly to 4th position because stays in 4th position thanks to a very poor, by his standards, 3rd sector. It's still McLaren, Hakkinen, Williams, Villeneuve, McLaren, Coulthard, Ferrari, Schumacher, question mark, Sauber, Alesi, and in 6th position.
Murray, I think it's the 3rd sector that is probably the dampest on the circuit. And you can see that he's been doing fairly quick times in the 1st and 2nd sectors, but all of their time is being lost in the 3rd, and I think that's the dampest part of the circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. So now here's something interesting too. Mika Hakkinen, that we've been talking about, has shot up from 21st in the arrows to 7th position. Now they've really got that car moving now, and Michael Schumacher is 1.1 seconds inside Mika Hakkinen's lap time after 2 sectors. This is where he lost time on the previous lap. He's coming up behind his brother, Ralf Schumacher, and we know what's happened between them in the past. Ralf moves over and lets Michael through, and there is Mika Hakkinen's fastest so far lap time, which I think is about to be destroyed by Michael Schumacher, who's coming through on his 15th lap today. And sure enough, Michael Schumacher, nearly 1 second faster, moves up into the fastest time of all. It would be quite wrong, of course, to make any reference to this in terms of grid positions, because these times don't count. But 1:33.8 is now just over 3 seconds off Villeneuve's pole position time last year. Well, you're vindicated, Alan.
This is where Schumacher really does come into his own on these tricky conditions. If it's in the wet, pouring with rain, half dry. I mean, this is where Michael Schumacher really does shine.
And what I'm finding interesting, particularly, Alan, is this is the first time, I say again, that we've seen the Ferrari, the McLaren and the Williams on the same track together in really competitive fighting conditions. We've wondered just how well Ferrari were doing with their car at Mugello. I think in the hands of Michael Schumacher, we're starting to get the answer now.
Well, they deliberately kept away from testing with everybody, and they decided to stay in Italy and keep their testing fairly secretive. They obviously knew that they had something up their sleeve. They were fairly happy with it. Schumacher reckons it's the nicest balanced car that he's driven for a while.
Things are really happening now. Ferrari fastest, Schumacher. McLaren second, Hakkinen. Williams third, Villeneuve. Benetton fourth, Wurz. McLaren fifth, Coulthard, and in 6th position, Johnny Herbert in the Sauber. Damon Hill spins again. That's the 2nd time.
Through it. That's the third
time.
Murray.
I apologise. But this is... Alan, do you realise that the Saubers, which were not going well this morning, are now 6th and 7th? Johnny Herbert 6th, John Alesi 7th, and Mika Salo 8th in the Arrows, Rubens Barrichello 9th in the Stewart, Damon Hill down to 10th position, and the tail-wagging McLaren of Mika Hakkinen on the Albert Park circuit. And we've got 17 minutes left of this second 60-minute practice session. Lots can happen in that time. 1:33.8. Just about 3.5 seconds off Jacques Villeneuve's pole position time last year in the wider Williams McLaren, which would be more efficient aerodynamically and with the full width slick tyres as opposed to the groove tyres that you can see on the McLaren. And here's the spin, spinning hill. Third time unlucky. Same place, same track, same driver, same car, same unfortunate conclusion, and a happy wave to us from David.
I think all in the one corner's a bit rich.
Back to Albert Park for the second practice session. There's Giancarlo on the track. The man from Rome, he lives in Monaco at the present moment, as do so many of them. They will tell you that it's for convenience reasons. We could travel around Europe much more conveniently.
Well, the airport at Monaco is such a good airport there.
And we all know, don't we, Alan, that they actually save a lot of money on tax by living in Monaco. Well, the interesting thing to me, the most interesting thing, is the way that Mika Salo suddenly leapt up from 21st. He was 8th for a while, and he's now down to 11th position. He's out again, he's on the track, he's done 15 laps, and he's still got 10 minutes to go to improve things, but we've got the rain coming down again.
Well, now that is a shame. That is a shame, because I was rather hoping that rain would have stayed away, because certainly with only 10 minutes to go, that's when we would have seen them all coming out and having a go.
What do you got to say to us, Charles Stewart, in the pits?
Well, Murray, I'm standing in front of the Benetton garage, and behind me you'll see Alexander Wurz, the fourth fastest so far in the session. He's sitting in the car, and there's a piece of white paper in front of him. On that is actually the map of the circuit. He's actually studying the map while he's waiting here, which he said to me earlier, it takes him only about half an hour to learn a track, but obviously he's doing a little bit of homework here in the pits.
Alan, I have to tell you an amusing little story about Alexander Wurz. I didn't know him, and I went into the garage in Silverstone last year, and I said, Alexander, you don't know me, my name's Murray Walker, but I used to commentate on your father, Franz Wurz, when he was rallycross champion. You are wrong, he said. I have seen you in the Pizza Hut, Camacho.
Well, there you go. See what he's doing now. You can actually see his hands moving around.
Yeah.
He'll be doing laps in his mind. And, you know, funny enough, if a driver looks at a map and mentally goes around, it takes him about the same time to mentally go around the map as it does in the car.
Not easier, too, of course, isn't it?
Well, if you're a bit thick, you do a very long lap time.
So now here's Mika Salo, the man I was talking about earlier on, who's impressed me enormously today. He sees this as his opportunity to demonstrate, by being in the Arrows team, just how good a Grand Prix driver he can be.
Right, now you can see, Murray, he is on the wets. You've got 2 grooves on the front, 3 on the rear, so that's a way of saying, distinguishing fairly quickly whether they're wet or dry. Not that you have to have too much imagination to see the spray.
And Michael Schumacher, that you are watching exiting the pit lane in his Ferrari, followed by his rival Jacques Villeneuve, is fastest, with Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren second. Jacques Villeneuve in the background there is third fastest. A fine fourth is new boy Alexander Wurz in the Benetton, ahead of David Coulthard's McLaren and Ralf Schumacher's Jordan.
You watch this car control of this guy. Look, that's what I like to see. The back stepping out onto the power, opposite lock.
And unless I'm very much mistaken, he's on dry weather tyres. It's difficult to count these grooves when the wheels are going round as quickly as that.
No, I think he's on wets, Murray. Let's have a look. The white sticker makes it difficult.
Well, whatever, he's demonstrating his virtuosity. We know that Ralf Schumacher is one of the best wet weather drivers that the world has ever seen. He proved that in Spain the year before last with that quite incredible victory of his. He demonstrated it again at Monaco last year. When the weather is wet, the opposition quakes when Ralf Schumacher gets into the Ferrari.
Well, I think he is on wet, so I just counted the grooves. This is one good thing about, well, not one good thing about these new regulations. In the old days, you could, if they didn't have any grooves at all, they were dries, and if they had grooves, they were wet.
You counted them out, you counted them back again. 1 minute and 45 seconds decreasing of this last 60-minute practice session to go. And I can't see there being any change in the order now because the circuit is wet in parts, damp in other parts. Michael Schumacher is now coming into the pit lane as Jacques Villeneuve starts a lap which will quite probably be his last of the morning because there's 1 minute and 19 seconds to go. The fastest lap we've had from Michael Schumacher was 1 minute and 33 seconds. And I think, therefore, it's fairly safe to say that at the end of the first day of practicing for Sunday's Australian Grand Prix, practicing as opposed to qualifying, 120 minutes out on the track for those who had no problems. It's Michael Schumacher fastest, but there's news from Darrell Eastlake in the pits.
Yes, Murray, Pattis and Truly just gone out in both cross. Time really running out for them, but they've put wet weather tyres on. They've bowled them on. The team got them out very quickly, so they might just get a couple of laps in.
Thanks, Daz. What is interesting is that Villeneuve is out on a different tread pattern than Schumacher, so that could be the reason that they have elected to go out, because it is starting to rain a little bit. Goodyear may want some information in regards to tread patterns, and they'll give them a debrief after the session.
Yeah, and as we watch Olivier Panis, he's just got to be able to do the one lap because there are now 12 seconds to go and decreasing. But both the Prost cars are out. And as you can see, they're on Bridgestone wet tyres, multi-grooved wet tyres. There's different tread patterns for the wet conditions. And now the session has been completed. No time is left. And the fastest on Friday was Michael Schumacher, 1 minute 33.8, which is just 3.5 seconds slower than Jacques Villeneuve's pole position time last year. Much closer than most people expected anyone to be at the end of the first day. Mika Hakkinen, second fastest in the McLaren, 0.6 of a second slower than Schumacher. Villeneuve in the Williams is third fastest, and he is some 1.2 seconds slower than Schumacher. Wurz is fourth fastest in the Benetton. Coulthard fifth and Ralf Schumacher sixth. So in the top six we have a Ferrari, two McLarens, a Williams, a Benetton and a Jordan, and that's a very interesting spread of constructors. In seventh position, Johnny Herbert in the Sauber, followed by his teammate Jean Alesi. That is an excellent performance because neither of them went all that well in the testing at Barcelona. Jarno Trulli, who's out on the track now, and the Prost is ninth fastest. And in 10th position, the second Williams driver, Heinz Harald Frentzen. A really, really interesting, I don't know to what extent significant first two sessions. And of course they're leading up to two more practice sessions tomorrow and the afternoon qualifying session for Sunday's Australian Grand Prix.
So Michael Schumacher, the second practice session, comes out and puts in a very, very fast time. Alan Jones, he's always the man to beat, isn't he?
That's right, Kenny, and he does it at the right time too. It's the first practice session of 1998. No one knew what was going to happen and who had the upper hand. Psychologically, he goes back to the hotel, the quickest man in Formula One for 1998, and that does the Ferrari team the world of good and puts everyone else thinking, oh dear, what, he's at it again.
But ordinary conditions, Alan, I mean, one side of the track it's dry, the other side is wet. I mean, what do you do?
Terrible conditions. In fact, we spoke to Jackie Stewart earlier on. They finished a car last night. Couldn't hope for a worse condition to try and sort your car out. They really need dry laps to sort these cars out. The
tyre war between Bridgestone and Goodyear, where do you see that?
Well, that's it. Very interesting. This morning we saw McLaren come out and blitz them with the Bridgestones. Schumacher's taken up the challenge with Goodyear. It hasn't ended there either.
Interesting times ahead. We'll be back with more after the break.